answering them?
No, because religion and politics are inseparable. Religion is a numbers thing, politics is a power thing. A numbers thing in the end also is a numbers thing because it's a power thing. So both religion and politics are about numbers, they're about power. And if religion is about power, why would religion allow you to be you? It's sad for me that you go to West Africa abnormal. Why is it normal that there is not a single white petrol attendant through the whole of Africa, not just in South Africa? Why is it normal that there's no white person in refuse collection? Why is it that there's no white person who is a domestic worker or a garden boy? Why is it normal? We've normalized the abnormal. In the land of our ancestors, we are still slaves. Why is there no single white person who lives in a shack in Orange Farm, who gets on 3 cannon fodder that can be given to the hand of his favorite and chosen people to be slaughtered at will so they can inherit the land that he has chosen for his people? And honestly, I have no other expression, excuse me. Fuck the rest. That's just what it was. Now, you see religion in action. And that's like in the very beginning of the Bible, by the way. You see religion in action, becoming a political tool. So, no, I don't compromise, and people can call me what they want to call me after this podcast, but I don't compromise, just like I don't for the national anthem. Once you guys start going a deep low fun, I just stand up and I do whatever I want to do. My anthem has ended. Because I don't understand why an anthem that we sang for so many years, which is actually not even South African only, while it was started by Enoch Sontonga, it was embraced by other African countries. Still the same for Tanzania, well, Mugabe changed it. A lifetime, I will see the ANC go into an alliance with the DA. Well, I've always known they are funded from the same coffers. I think the writing is on the wall. But to actually just outright proclaim it was a shock to my system. But also to just state, I shall not go into an alliance with MK. Some of those are your former comrades. You hate MK people less than you hate descendants.
Mashiane, politically incorrect. We are very lucky today. We are in the midst of an African sage. We are going to try as much as possible to consume all the negative energies away from us. And then we try to attract the goodness of Africa that comes with everything. I'm going to try as much as possible to sit back so you can have an opportunity to hear and quite fortunately learn a lot from this. Togos. Likai.
Ngiyaphila njani?
Rewona Mashiane politically incorrect. I know I've not given you much about what we are going to discuss. I've thought of what many topics I can talk to you about. You are one of the most versatile African minds that I can discuss African topics with. So our channel is centralized on African things. So everything we do, we try to centralize it around perspective of an African. It's going to be a challenge to budget the little time that I have to have you. Can you just kindly, maybe in 5 minutes, give an introduction that you prefer before I start calling you an admiral, before I start calling you a doctor? Just a 5 minutes briefing for those who have not had an opportunity to consume your content.
Yeah, ngiyabonga kuqala for the platform. You really forced this.
Thank you.
I don't know the amount of times I said no, but I guess if the spirit world wants it to happen, it will happen. My name is Khanyisile. I have two surnames, Litchfield-Tshabalala. Litchfield is my maiden surname. I'm a descendant of Swati and English blood. English, sadly, but that's what it is. My mom is a Dlamini. My father is a Litchfield. His dad came to Eswatini, I think, 4 generations ago. And my mom is a Dlamini from the royal family. Sizukulu saka Mbilini. Mbilini nelingwana wa Mswati, the second. So, yeah, how do I want people to address me? I think as the spirit leads, truly. I always say to people, I just want to be remembered for one thing in my life, that I loved Africa beyond anything else. You can't buy me to sell this continent. You can't pay me to sell it. I can't rest until I see it getting somewhere. And I sincerely believe that you can't liberate a single African country. You can only liberate the entire 54 because of the policy of divide and rule. They play one against the other. So that's why when people say, oh, we want a revolution in Burkina Faso, I'm just like, it will not survive unless we have an African revolution. Yes, Burkina Faso could be the start, but it has to take root in all other countries if it must survive. That's why even ours didn't survive in 1994, no matter how good intentions there were. So yeah, that's me. Truly, I just want to be known as someone that loved Africa beyond anything else.
Thank you for that. So I think what I ended up settling with was to settle with, let me talk spirituality and the interventions from, and please pardon my ignorance in terms of African spiritual persuasions, the interventions that our ancestors have on our current issues. A lot of people, including myself, have been failed by organized religion, because I'm one of those who believe organized religion is one of the major reasons why we found ourselves struggling in South Africa. And before I go into spirituality, where you are also well versed in, let's talk about how, according to you, the mistakes of organized religion as Africans. I was talking to Professor Sinukwane about Mushweshwe having converted to Christianity before he passed on. And as an African person, I felt disappointed. And like such stories about organized religion, how the missionaries used them. I just want to sit back and listen to all these stories as you unpack the mistakes as Africans we have made in accepting organized religion that is also foreign. Thank you. Let me sit back.
Thank you so much. I was laughing when you said organized religion, and then you said the role that the living dead, because that's what we call them, Badimu, Abapansi, ancestors in English, which is really a generic term, in our lives right now, in the quagmire that we find ourselves. I have coined a saying that says, when the living are more dead than the dead, how should the dead help the living? Because Akiri, we are matter. We are, in science, the living proof. We are alive. We breathe. We are in this realm. The living dead are spirit. So for them to function, they need the matter. They need living bodies. But if these living bodies are more dead than these spirits, who are in fact not dead but are the living dead, how do they intervene in our lives? What do they use to intervene in our lives? You know, it breaks my heart. I don't know how you even settled on that on the 20th of December, which is supposed to be a festive season, because it's a very depressing topic. When you dig into pre-colonial African history, and I mean I've dug into what Christians call BC, before Christ, what we call BCE, before the Common Era. I've dug into that, thousands of years into it. And remember, it was a countdown, again. It would go 100,000, 90,000, 80, right up to 1. Iafela, then Hukala 80 years. I've dug so much into that. I have not found a single prison in Africa. I haven't found a single prison in Africa, even in pre-colonial Africa. Yaga AD Anna Domina, Christians say that after Christ, we say CE, Common Era. There wasn't a prison until Islam descends on us, 639 CE or AD, and 9 centuries later, the Spanish and the Portuguese were the first to land on the West African shores. You start seeing prisons, start seeing forts. You start seeing people being killed in the name of God. We never fought a war in the name of our spirituality. Amazulu never attacked Basotho because you use the goat, we use the lamb, or you use the lamb and we use the goat. You slaughter on a Saturday and we slaughter on a Sunday. You use cowrie shells when we use beads. You know, we never went to war because of those things until Christianity descends, religion descends on us, as in Islam and Christianity. So when I say we are more dead than the living dead, when you dig into pre-colonial Africa, I call it virgin Africa, really, before the interregnum or the rude interception by colonialism, both of them, the Arab and the European one, and their foreign religions. You start seeing things like a grandson raping a grandmother. Unthinkable. You couldn't even think it, let alone do it in pre-colonial Africa. In fact, when you finish that rape, you and your whole family would be gone with that rape. And people knew, I don't just represent myself. Whatever I do, I represent my family too. So we are so dead. It's not funny. You know, a human being is spirit, body, soul. Soul is your consciousness, your psychology, your mind. Spirit is what survives when you die. That's why we call them the living dead, because their spirits are alive. And I don't know what is left with the lives in which we live now. I don't know, the soul is not there because I'm not sure we think the things that we do. The spirit is not there because we are not connected entirely with the spirit world. Religion is the opposite of spirituality. So if over 90% of Africa is religious, it simply means over 90% of Africa is spiritually dead. Because religion and spirit don't coexist. Religion kills the spirit to survive. On the other hand, spirituality doesn't kill religion because religion is the first reawakening to the spirit world. It's like baby steps before you crawl. Then you start walking. Then you grow into an adult. Then you grow spiritually. You leave religion. You grow into the fullness of spirituality. So they can't interact with us, Mwanaka, because we don't even hear when they talk. We are not even scared of the things we do. The religion tells you you can live however you live. If at the moment of your dying you repent and you confess Christ, you are going to heaven. I'm not making this up. This is religion. I'm sure you know it too. That's not how spirituality works. There's recompense, and spirituality actually has a higher demand and calling on your behavior. Because if you live the way you lived, you were killing people, you were doing this and that, it doesn't matter how remorseful you are at your dying point. We, the living, together with the living dead, now have a responsibility to start from A to cleanse that soul. It's a very heavy burden. That's what a lot of people are doing for their families now. You know, I need to go back, who didn't do this and did that. For us, the recompense is actually higher than in religion. So I dare tell you that religion lowers consciousness. It lowers morality, it lowers ethics actually. And we've seen it with the African community. As I say, there was no prison in Africa. If you dig into Africa pre-colonial, I don't care what you find, you will not find a prison. We didn't need it because spirituality functions more on the individual judging themselves before the community judges you. You know, it's two things they call ethics and morality. Spirituality is more moral than ethics. Ethics is a collective code. Spirituality is more personal, and your personal joins the collective. Religion starts in the collective. It's more collective before it comes to your individual action. So, I think for me, the living dead, where they are, they're just pulling their hair out, to use the English saying. They don't know which warm body to find to bring any message, to bring any caution, any guidance. Because we are more dead than them. At least they are the living dead. We are just dead, honestly. So I think I'm going to leave it there maybe and just allow it to sink to the listeners, whom I actually forgot to greet, Dumelangle. And maybe also just allow you to have a follow-up question.
Thank you. That battle that I have is precisely because our political parties and the way we do politics, our political players have somewhat, and sometimes I feel it is deliberate, they have used organized religion to get people to vote and support them. And at some point, I consume a lot of your content, and I understand that you are one of those political minds and spiritual minds who have taken a conscious decision that you do not want to be tainted, you don't want to be dated by organized religion to an extent that you would even distance yourself from a funeral, because a funeral now becomes a church service. It's a church service at home, from the church at home, and even at the graveyard when you come. So the whole thing, we have embraced it so much so that we can't even find our identity, because it has eroded even our own culture, because we followed this organized religion. So in terms of politics, when I grew up, so I grew up in the 80s, early 90s, when we had someone being called a communist, we also assumed that person is an atheist. So there was always a relationship between politics and religion. And I just want you to unpack it for me. Is it difficult for politicians? Like I gave the background that they deliberately want to use the religions, because now it's no longer liberation movements. They are now formal political parties, and their success depends on voting. Is it difficult for these political parties, the leaders thereof, to distance themselves from organized religion?
Well, let's start by saying organized religion is a political tool. So you can't separate organized religion from politics. And I'm saying that because let's trace the origin of organized religion. First, let's trace the origin of Judaism, which is what has given birth to Christianity and Islam. Judaism comes up and gains traction as a political tool of liberating so-called Jews from the so-called slavery by Egyptians. And from then, it comes with a promise from Yahweh: I will take you out of this land and take you to a promised land. A promised land which was habited, by the way, not just by one nation, but by a myriad of nations. Today's Palestinians being one of those nations, by the way. And what does he tell the people who are entering the promised land, which was a handful, by the way, from the total number that he had taken out of Egypt, because he was killing them in the desert for one thing or the other in that 40 years. he tells them, here's the promised land. It's inhabited. Kill whatever you find inside there. Don't make friends, don't intermarry, slaughter. I've given them into your hand. You see land grabbing, you see land invasion in action by a God who favors his people above those people that he created too. If we take Christianity at what it's saying, they are also God's creation that he's decided are subhumans, cannon fodder that can be given to the hand of his favorite and chosen people to be slaughtered at will so they can inherit the land that he has chosen for his people. And honestly, I have no other expression, excuse me. Fuck the rest. That's just what it was. Now, you see religion in action. And that's like in the very beginning of the Bible, by the way. You see religion in action, becoming a political tool, becoming a divisive tool, becoming a us and them tool, becoming a tool of invasion, of colonialism, of allowing whatever evil that can happen. If you are given into my hand as a nation and it is said, kill at will, I mean, I slaughter your 2-year-old, I slaughter your 10-year-old, I slaughter the grandmother in front of the 2-year-old. Where do you think colonialism got all the script from? Both the Arab and the European one. Now, if that's the birth of Judaism in action, which has then given birth to Christianity first, then Islam, why would you think politics and religion are two separate entities? Islam comes up through Prophet Muhammad, gets this message alone in the desert. Yes, comes back. They don't want him because, you know, they are in spirituality. And this is saying there's only one God and da-da-da. And they were just like, nah, this is not how our ancestors lived. Cut a long story short, when they flee to Ethiopia for survival and Ethiopia allows them to stay, what does religion do? To show you that you can't separate religion and politics. What does it do? Do they get to Ethiopia and respect what they find in Ethiopia in terms of what those people used as their spiritual tool? I don't want to say believe because there's no belief in spirituality. Remember to ask me that before we end. So, do they respect the spiritual tool of Ethiopians? No, they want to convert them. Like dudesses and dudes. You have no land. You've been chased away from your own land. You are here as guests. Now we are here and you are beginning to tell us that your God is stronger than our God and superior to ours. But you are refugees here. That's religion in action. You can't separate it from politics because in the end, religion wants to be a superstructure. It wants to dictate to government how a system of governance should go. When Islam is at its peak, what does it do? It invades. How do you think Islam was taken to all the Gulf states, to as far as Asia? As a matter of fact, what is today, it was Constantinople. Before that, it was the capital of the Eastern Roman Empire. It was renamed, what's the capital of Turkey?
Istanbul.
Istanbul, exactly. How did it become Istanbul?
Constantinople.
Yes. How did it become Istanbul? Through the sword and bloodletting. Conquest. Can you separate religion from politics? No, religion is a political tool. Christianity, the first Europeans to arrive in, I said, was the Portuguese and the Spanish. They see this vast land of beautiful people. Africans are beautiful, by the way. I don't want to even mince my words about it. Beautiful structure, beautiful skin, beautiful hair, beautiful structure, strong, very strong. They see all of this endowed, the soil is fertile. We are truly the promised land of milk and honey. They want this, they start fighting amongst themselves. Who calls them? Just check the date properly. I think it's 1488. Who calls them to order to a meeting? The Pope. Why does he call them? They are both Catholic nations. What does he say to them? Catholics, don't kill one another over a bunch of peasants. What are the names they called us? I don't know why they elude me now. Heathens.
Yeah, heathens and
barbarians. You know, monkeys. We don't do that as Catholics.
Kafir.
We don't kill ourselves over such useless people. So we're going to come to an understanding. It's called the Papal Bull. I think it's 1488. If the date is not correct, your listeners...
1488 Bartholomew Dias lands.
Yeah. But yes.
Yeah.
So he says to them, you Spain, I give you South America. Why do you think that in South America is about 80%? I mean, I haven't counted, but should be 8% or more. The colonies there were all Spanish. Portugal was supposed to take Africa. They ended up with 5. Angola, Mozambique, and 3 islands. Sao Tome and Principe, Cabo Verde, Guinea-Bissau. Why did they end up with 5 when Spain had so many? Because the Portuguese started having competition. The British then came on board. The French came on board. Whoever came on board, you understand? And the British weren't even Catholic, so the Pope couldn't call them to a meeting and have this internal arrangement. The French were Catholic. That's how they end up getting the bulk of West Africa, actually. Now, again, I say to you, why did the Pope call them? It's religion. What were they fighting about? Colonialism, which is what? A political invasion. Can you separate politics from religion? You can't. But look at the scramble of Africa also quickly before I bring it back to you. 1484 to 1488, 4 years. People think the scramble of Africa was a one-day meeting. No, it was a 4-year meeting. Who came together? All the leaders of Europe.
4 months.
4 years, 4 months. Somewhere there.
Okay.
Yeah. No, most people think it was just one day.
Yeah.
They got together at the...
It's around 4 months, I think.
No, 4 years.
4 years?
Yes. 1484 to 1488.
Oh.
Those meetings were coming in and out, in and out, in and out. People think when we say that meeting in Berlin, the conference of Berlin, or the Scramble of Africa, we are talking about, no, they got together one day, and no. They kept meeting as they were fighting to have mitigation, as they were finding things to decide. Oh, okay, guys, they have something called the national altar, and the keeper of the national altar is the Queen Mother, Indlovgazi, Kgosigadi. So what do we do? Do we kill the Indlovgazi? Do we kill the king, or do we kill the Queen Mother? Who's more important? What was your experience? They kept checking scripts against each other and advising one another. Now, but who came to the conference in Berlin? All the leaders of Europe. Were they spiritual leaders? No, they were political leaders. But who also attended? The church, the Pope. So can you separate Christianity and politics? You can't. So fast forward to today. If you say political parties today are using religion to gain traction, oh, well, number one, I had someone challenge me in a podcast on Tsigi Mazwai, telling me, I don't know what you guys are always talking about, this African spirituality thing of yours. After all, over 80% of South Africans are Christian. Wow. Wow. So a white American can rock up and say, I hear you African Americans always talking about equality. After all, over 80% of America are whites. So shut up and just fall in line. Some arguments, you just listen to the person and you're just like, did you wake up on the wrong side? Did you wake up at the foot of your bed? How did you wake up for you to be bold, to be this stupid? You know, excuse me. Anyway. Are they really Christian, is what I ask. Mm-hmm. Because if you look at Catholics, which is the majority, it's the biggest in the world actually, not just in South Africa. Does Catholicism allow them to slaughter a goat on Friday? Of course it does, and they do. Does it allow them Khubea Nama Emsamo You know, the select parts that we put at the altar, of course it allows them. Having done that on a Friday and eaten that food on a Saturday, do they go to church on Sunday? Of course they do. Do they take the Catholic sacrament? Of course they do. Does the Catholic Church have a whole month in October dedicated to the living dead, to ancestors? Of course it does. Does it encourage you to go and visit at the graveside? Of course it does. Born-again Christians, who are the fanatics, who don't want you to do those things, are they the majority? Definitely not. Is the first churches that came, the denominations actually, your Catholic, your Methodist, your Anglican, are they the majority? Of course they are. Having said that though, let's come back to why political parties use it. It's easy. It's already organized. Remember, politics is about numbers. So if I go to Ray Macaulay and he officiates me as a leader of the Purple Party, you don't want to use colors that exist, or the Orange Party, you know. When he officiates me, it means everybody at Rema believes that this is the party chosen by God, but not just that. If Rema is influencing maybe 10 other born-again denominations, it means right there also I have an influence. If the Bishop of South Africa blesses me as the leader of the Grey Party, and the Bishop is Catholic, it means right there Catholics believe, okay, this party is fine because it was blessed. So religion is an easily organized platform for politicians to go and mobilize. But also, because religion stupefies, religion is an absolutist term thing. It has no creativity. Again, ask me about that. We have now two things to ask me as a follow-up. The fundamental difference between religion and spirituality. Because religion does not allow thinking. Religion is absolutist. You believe by blind faith. You don't question God. If a person dies and we're praying for them to be healed, well, it was the will of God. It's very absolute. So it's good for politicians because then no questions are asked. I could have been the biggest criminal and decided to now be in politics. And I mean, I don't mean petty things that are mistakes, guys. I don't demonize people just because they come from prison. I mean a habitual criminal. You could have been a serial rapist. Now you have a political party. If some church gives you a platform and blesses you, it says to the followers, this is okay. But it says to other Christians too, you know, this is fine. I've asked God, which is what pastors are today. I've asked God and God says it's okay. So they will never stop to use religion because religion wants you not thinking. And politics don't want you to think too, by the way. The two go together. They fit so much hand in glove. Politics don't want you to think because politics can rule you better if you are docile. Why do you think after 94, the biggest party, I can talk about it because I was in that party in exile. Why do you think there is no political discussion at branch levels of political parties? Have you attended branch level meetings of political parties? You don't last 10 minutes. You want to run and go and shower and cleanse. Just the insults, the language, the reference to women. Gee, you ask yourself, am I really in a meeting of people who are ruling the country or who have intention to rule the country at this level of thinking? So, no, the two feed on each other. Honestly, they are like the camel and water.
Okay, so when you spoke about when this promised land was given and you came back, you spoke about so when they arrived at this land, they found it occupied. And I could not help but draw this dichotomy between them when they were living Egypt for their promised land, And the Huguenots ran away from the Inquisition to land in Africa, and they found Africans living in Africa, and those Huguenots and stuff, and all the mix of people. They did the same thing when they arrived there. They started slaughtering our people. And you spoke about how they found a fertile land in Africa, and the beauty, and the beauty of melanin. Is it too polarizing for us as African people to say to religious people, Christians, Muslims, to say, here are examples of, I don't even know how to say it. Here are the wrong parts of your religion, maybe mass persecution, mass and another example is, you spoke about in some of your talks how these people, when they give you their religion, they say bring. They take your culture, they take something, say you are no longer, and this is the language they're going to speak with.
Of course.
So one of the arguments I've had with people is, why, if all other religions, why cannot I find Thabo Mashiane, who is Indian, or Thabo Mashiane, who is white, if this religion is not racial? And at the back of my mind, of course, I've got the question that you sent me. So I want to give that back to you. You'll realize I'm giving you many questions so you could be at peace answering them.
No, because religion and politics are inseparable. Religion is a numbers thing. Politics is a power thing. A numbers thing in the end also is a numbers thing because it's a power thing. So both religion and politics are about numbers, they're about power. And if religion is about power, why would religion allow you to be you? It's sad for me that you go to West Africa and most male names are Arab names. They come from Islam. Why should I stop being me for your God to accept me? It doesn't make sense. My name is Khanyisile. Why, if I convert to Christianity, should my name be Maria Goretti, which was my name at birth, by the way? Imagine today. Imagine you were coming here to meet Maria Goretti and I come out like, huh? What? For starters, Goretti is a surname in Italy. The name is Maria. How do you name somebody Nombuso Mkhize? And it's an Italian. That's their first name, Nombuso Mkhize. And then they will still have an Italian surname. That's what we've done. It's madness. We have white names that white people don't even have. I normally make an example with one, but I thought, the people who carry this name will think they'll take it personal, so maybe let me not make the example. But there are colors, like black, white, red, pink, purple, whatever. How do you give people a name? That's why I say we are more dead than dead. The initial people, remember, did not concede to this. That's why we have the story of Neander, who was crucified and refused to repent and be a Christian, even at the point of crucifixion. We have people like Saronia Mango, who shapeshifted into a panther to avert being guillotined because of the refusal to convert to Christianity under the French attack. The initial people saw this madness. It's us that came after. And maybe I excuse the other people who converted and said it was at the barrel of a gun. It was a survivalist thing. It's not a survivalist thing now. Religion is using Africans for its purpose. But you find people like Njingambande of Ndongo and Matamba, Queen Njingambande. She used Catholicism for her benefit. It was not the other way around. Catholicism didn't use her. Tina today, Christianity and Islam are using us for their benefit. We are the fundamentalists, by the way. Why is Islam not making Senegal, Niger, Burkina Faso, Cote d'Ivoire, Mali, Chad, Nigeria, Ghana, wherever you find it? Why is it not making those states to the equal wealth power of Saudi Arabia, of Qatar, of what are the other Gulf states? All of them. Why is Islam making those people rich, but not African Muslims? I don't understand. Why is Christianity making Europe rich? It has made Europe rich, but for us it makes individuals rich. At collective level, it has impoverished us because we are worse off now as religious people than what we were as spiritual people. How did Europe manage to dump Christianity, but we can't? Do you know what's the percentage of church going in Europe currently? It is set at between 3 and 5%.
3 and 5%?
Of course, and I think in that 3 and 5%, it's us who've immigrated to Europe or descendants of us who went long ago. Europeans started questioning and dumping Christianity at the Renaissance. Between 12 and 1300. Renaissance is a nice French word. It just means reawakening. It's a cultural revolution, which we have not gone through, by the way. We need a podcast just to talk about the cultural revolution. You see, in Renaissance, they started questioning. That's where they came with the term separation of state and religion. They are like, this thing is madness. Religion can't tell us how to live. We didn't vote for religion. We voted for leaders. We voted for politics. Separate the two. Let religion be a private matter. They are the first ones to even coin that. Because before wars were declared by the Pope in Christianity. Now, they never turned back. Europeans have been questioning religion right through up to now. You have churches in Europe where it's a beer and a bar in front and a church through the door. That's how much they are desperate to get people to come to church. You can get your beer at the tap at the bar and you can walk in with your beer to the church. They are desperate. They are looking for numbers. So who's keeping Christianity up? Us in America. The poorest of the poor. Americans are poor. America is indebted for over 3 trillion currently. If that statistic is right. Let's just say trillions. It's in debt. If you look at the cities in America, the inner cities, they are in decay. Which is why when Trump says put America first, people hear what he's saying. Because they know their living experience is not Hollywood. They know they are suffering and they are struggling. But they are the ones keeping up Christianity. We are the ones keeping up Christianity. And Islam, we are the fundamentalists. Why is not translating to wealth? Why is it impoverishing us? Truly. If truly those gods are alive, and we are part of those religions, we are not grafted in. We are the stepchildren. And if you are the father of a household, who do you start blessing? Your stepchild or your biological child? Let's just be real and accept the fallacy of being human. That's why we are called human. You are not perfect. So if you had stepkids and you had your own kids and you're distributing wealth, who do you start with? Your stepkids or your own kids? I'm not going to answer that because people know they see this every day. It's a lived experience. So in Christianity, we are grafted in because the so-called Jews disappointed God. In Islam, it's given first to Arabs and then we are grafted in. We come in through conversion. That doesn't make sense. I'm not converted into African spirituality. It is naturally who my forebearers were. No one recruits me. That's why we don't even proselytize. We don't recruit people to be in African spirituality. We believe it's in you. So why not follow something where you're not recruited? Where application is creative. I come back to the question I had said, ask me. The fundamental difference between religion and Christianity. In spirituality, I don't need to stand in the street and shout at the top of my voice and recruit people because it brings me closer to the door of heaven. No. It will occur in their own time. They will find the truth in their own time because spirituality is powerful. In spirituality, there's no book that was written so many centuries ago that does not move with the times, that I was not even there when it was written, but I have to implement. You know, people say about spirituality now, oh, you know, you can't speak to ancestors at 12 midday, and I'm just like, I don't know who your ancestors are. I know I can speak to mine anytime, and mine know the era and age in which I live. So my ancestors will not come through when I'm addressing a boardroom and come through and make me a spectacle and a public debacle. They won't, because they are the living dead. They lived this life, and they know that, you know, in each era there are changes. So religion, truly,
So-
you have to be brave. Just one last thing on that. I always say religion asks you to take off who you are, not just put it aside, burn it, throw the ashes in the ocean before you can internalize it. Change your name, change your surname in some instances, change your language, change how you speak. We say originator, we don't say God, they say God. Change how you speak to the originator. Change the way you dress. Change your songs. Change your gender relations. We were never patriarchal people. Religion forces us to be patriarchal. Women are the originator of sin. They are the deceived in the Garden of Eden, so they are the deceiver of mankind. Women can't teach men. Women must learn in silence. The man is the head of the house. You know, pay your taxes, give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. Religion changes your gender relations. It changes how you think about the person on the throne. We never paid taxes to evil people. We just upped and left. That's why we say a king is a king by its people. That is how Mzilikazi left Mos from KwaZulu and gave birth to the Ndebele people. That's how Soshangane lives. That's how we migrated. If we feel you've become more powerful than the living dead or than the originator, we just decide, hey, do this. We have elected this man to be our leader now, or that woman to be our leader now. So we just want to march and go and find empty land and settle there and start a new life. You can continue governing yourself and your cruelty. No, the Bible comes and say, no, pay to Caesar. Remember what Caesar represents in that verse. Caesar was oppressive to the Jews. He was a colonial government. The Bible says it's fine, just pay to the colony. It's fine. I mean, how can it not sanction colonialism? They themselves had entered the promised land as colonizers. So I rest my case.
Thank you. I think all of this culminates into a space where you exist in a political party, and a lot of people, not only myself, were shocked when you announced your return to active politics. I've always insisted that a free mind like yourself would struggle to conform to, political things, especially in career politics, because career politics are much more different than an activist, yes, who fights for a specific cause. They used to call the ANC the broad church. So you are in a environment where it's called the broad church in MK. You are going to be leading with people who are bishops, and they are going to bring their titles in MK, and so as other political parties. And when such happens, and I've seen when maybe there are big gatherings, all religious denominations would want to give their word and stuff. When it comes to either policy and when it's time to govern, do you not think you are going to find challenges where organized religion would want to perpetuate what is happening currently? Because, I mean, the reason people follow MK, it's the way they are going to transform society with traditional leadership, with spiritual leadership. I've done podcasts from MK women who go and pray, who went to the mountain, who went badira ditlhabelo ko godimo ba shisimpepo and stuff. So I find it very revolutionary because other political parties would ordinarily shy away from such. So, contradiction or possible clashes when those who are bishops within would want the status quo to remain. I take it back to you.
Wow, I like that question actually. You listened to the podcast, so I think you saw. There are two reasons why I joined MK. One is that never did I think in my lifetime I will see the ANC go into an alliance with the DA. Well, I've always known they are funded from the same coffers. I think the writing is on the wall. But to actually just outright proclaim it was a shock to my system. But also to just state I shall not go into an alliance with MK. Some of those are your former comrades. You hate MK people less than you hate descendants of colonialists and descendants of apartheid upholders. That's a shock. But I think it was more a shock to me because I was unfortunate on two fronts. The day the GNU was announced, I was in Zambia, running training for Zambian MPs with an organization called Tax Justice Network Africa, just talking about how to strengthen tax laws in Zambia so they maximize on taxing corporates, because the whole African state still makes more money out of pay as you earn, by the way, than from corporate tax. If people can wake up tomorrow understanding how corporate does not pay tax, I think we'll have a revolution. I don't think people will agree to be taxed. That's podcast for another day. Now, I was in Zambia. They walked into that room. I mean, we are running the training, so obviously you are in communication, you know. You arrive first. When they come in, we are there. They ate me for breakfast. I have never been so attacked. Remember that Zambia was the HQ of the ANC. Remember that Zambia liberated the whole of Southern Africa technically, because they housed us, they housed Frelimo, they housed SWAPO, they housed the two liberation movements of Zimbabwe. Ian Smith of Rhodesia then used to go in by helicopters and bomb Zambia because they housed both Joshua Nkomo and Mugabe liberation movements. The Zambians were just like, is this what we died for? If you guys knew you were going to go into an alliance with the National Party, today Democratic Alliance, why didn't you just do it in the 80s and save the bloodshed? You guys had mass funerals. Imagine those people would be alive. You know, they accosted me so much. I had no answers. But I knew that they are accosting the wrong person, because I've never been a member of the ANC inside South Africa. I was unlucky because we were flying that Sunday to Tanzania, Arusha, to a meeting on debt, that is state debt. And over 17 or 18 countries, African countries, that Monday I suffered the same thing from different African countries. That made me think actually that if people outside South Africa are seeing the desperateness at which our country is at, and I'm not seeing it, which glasses am I using to look at our politics right now? That made me think. That's one. Another part of this is the same thing I joined the EFF for, the restoration of African dignity. From everything we've discussed thus far, I think you can conclude and walk away and say there's no dignity in being an African currently. And it's not just in South Africa, by the way. It's in the whole of Africa and in the diaspora too. Our situation as Africans is the same wherever you find us. The less policed places, the more arrested people, more criminal-prone areas, unemployment, no generational wealth, people don't finish school, highly religious, but it doesn't translate to anything at the table, loss of culture, loss of language, loss of history. So our lot is the same. So for me, pillar number one of MK, and which is what they've asked me to run with, restoration of African dignity is truly what took me there. I did a write-up on it. And I think my whole existence talking about African spirituality and pre-colonial African history truly is about the dignity of Africans. Because I think if you pull, it happened during apartheid. It was a running joke, but a sad joke, that if you walked into an African household with a black doll in the 70s, a child would actually take that doll and throw it away because they'd never even seen a black doll. Dolls were white. So the whole grooming and orientation was into whiteness. Sadly, that's where we've gone back to currently. You think an African child, a Mamelodi, at 10, if you ask them, do you want to stay here or do you want to go to America? Because even about America, the little we know is Hollywood. What would they tell you? I want to go. At 10, they'll tell you, I want to go to America. You tell them, do you want to go to Ghana? Ghana is in Africa. It's the capital of Ghana. Or do you want to go to London? They'll tell you, I want to go to London. But here's another thing. If you ask a 30-year-old African today, do you want to go to Moscow, Russia? Or do you want to go to Washington, America? What will they say? Washington, America. Because even what we know about the world is what has been permitted for us to know about the world. We hate Russians where we've never even met a Russian in our lives. But we hate them with a passion because that's the Western orientation. We are Westernized. And there's a war between Russia and the West. And we have chosen the Western side because we are Westernized people. So, yeah. For me, those are the two reasons, truly. I mean, MK, will there be antagonisms? I think it doesn't matter where I go currently, there'll be antagonisms. Can I tell you? There'll be antagonisms even if I had to join a political party set up by Izangoma Neinyanga. Because remember, some of these Izangoma Neinyanga are themselves Christians. You know that? Yeah. Abantu nabaphuma entwaseni qale kungena isonto bafaka isambatho. Kungena isonto ugobela be umfundisi. Then iphele isambatho ba change bafake ezezangoma then kube ugobela. I don't subscribe to that. Because I don't know if in Nubia in 11,000 BCE, there was Jesus in anything that was done for Africans. I mean, we have a date and time when Jesus came. And we also know that Jesus did not come to embrace African culture. So I don't know how those two things can be reconciled. Unless you are turning a blind eye to something in order to reconcile both. So, no, for me, antagonisms would happen. I always argue that either mad and society is normal, or society is normal and I'm mad. I don't know, the verdict is out. I don't know which one is which. But there are very few people who think like me, or would think like some of the people you've interviewed. I think you can name them for me when I finish talking. There are very few people who are strictly in African spirituality and will not mince. I stand up and walk now when they start praying. I don't have time for that. I have been deceived enough in my lifetime. I've given Christianity enough chance against my will. Remember, I was raised Catholic. It means I was baptized as a baby. I couldn't even say my name. I was already baptized. The religion was chosen for me. So, no, I don't compromise. And people can call me what they want to call me after this podcast. But I don't compromise. Just like I don't for the national anthem. Once you guys start going a deep low fun, I just stand up and I do whatever I want to do. My anthem has ended. Because I don't understand why an anthem that we sang for so many years, which is actually not even South African only, while it was started by Enoch Sontonga, it was embraced by other African countries. Still the same for Tanzania. Well, Mugabe changed it in Zimbabwe, but it's still the same for other African countries. I don't understand why it had to be changed. If whiteness came here to colonize, and they are willing to be part of us as Africans, why didn't they leave this anthem alone? There's nothing demonic about it. As a matter of fact, it is Christian because it says, Woza Moyo Ingwele. I just choose to make that Moyo Ingwele an ancestral Moyo Ingwele. But if you're Christian, you can choose to make it what it is. So that anthem is very incorporative. Why did it have to change? They are a minority. They were 24% in 94. They still wanted both of their languages in that anthem. That's arrogance. They wanted English and Afrikaans in that anthem. That's racism, that's arrogance, that's ingratitude, actually. when there are 9 African languages and there are only 2 in that anthem. So we had to compromise to make them comfortable. So now I sit, when you start going 80 blow, I sit down and I go on my phone so that you don't think I'm sitting because I'm sick. So the antagonism is there. So if MK becomes a ruling party and that anthem is adopted, I'll sit down even when I'm in parliament when that part comes. Because I sit anyway. So the antagonism, yes, within MK, it will happen, but not because it's MK. It would be an antagonism that happens anywhere else because, as I say, there are very few people who've turned their back totally. Listen, you can't pay me to be a Christian. I dare you. You can't pay me. I'm not a millionaire, but I will not even accept millions to go back to Christianity. I will not. I'm done. I don't vomit and then go back and eat my vomit. I'm done. I've studied its origins. I've studied all the councils from the first one in Acts. I think it's Acts 16. That was called between Paul and Peter. And those councils, remember, migrated into Vatican something. Vatican this number, Vatican this number. It didn't change. The Catholic Church is in charge of Christianity. That's why the Pope decides when is Easter each year. Christmas is a Catholic celebration. That's become a Christian celebration. So, no, you can't pay me to be a Christian. Shebatung, you cannot. I'm done. And I'm dead sure that I'm done.
So one of the most difficult things as a podcaster is ending a podcast. And I know I will not, I will sit at home, but maybe I could have squeezed this one, this one. I mean, anyone watching, you could actually deduce without being a scientist that, number one, we were persecuted into being Christians. It was the barrel of a gun.
Of course.
It was through slavery and conquest.
Sorry, just to interrupt you. It was also through denial of services. They had what they called the civilized, and then they had what they called amaqaba, the uncivilized, the heathens, the ones who had not converted.
Yes.
And when the colonial government was in place, they would give social services and public services to the civilized, that's the converted, and deny amaqaba. When they wanted to punish or enslave or rape or anything, they would come to amaqaba. So truly, I don't care what Christians and Muslims say today. It was through chiseling that we accepted religion. And now it's maintained by the African state. The state maintained its religion is a statutory thing. That's why Christmas is on TV. Easter is on TV. Is Africa Day on TV? Is it a holiday? Only in about 5 countries. Is first fruits on TV? No. Is September the actual end of the year for Africans? Is it on TV? No. Do you know of any African country that celebrates any holiday that has to do with African spirituality? I don't, thus far. But is Ramadan, is Easter, is this, that, is this? They're all on TV. And watch it. Eid will be a national holiday in South Africa before you even get 23 September being a holiday. But we tell ourselves the ANC is in power. Me, I'm not deceived. I know they are not. Abomanjingilane, they are just the watchmen and watchwomen. And I truly hope as MK we will refuse to be watchmen and watchwomen.
Yeah.
That we will take power for real.
As we convince each other as Africans, do you think we'll ever get to a stage where, because you speak a lot about cognitive dissonance, and most people want to make it sound as if it's something complicated, is the easiest of concepts for people to understand, but they just try to make it as if it's difficult, because in itself it's an internal conflict with yourself to say, let's not admit it, but we see it, but let's not admit it. I mean, so
no, they even say, when you tell them how enslaving the workplace is, they even tell you, yes, I know, I feel it all the time, but I need this work to pay for my car and to pay for my house. We didn't need to pay for a car and a house before they came. We ran systems that didn't require you to suffer that much at individual level. But But you still have people today who come and defend and tell you capitalism is good for us. No, it's good for you, maybe because you're making millions. Which is another thing religion makes you to be. Very self-centered. Look at the songs. I am saved in the name of Christ. I, on the judgment day, will be. Kibe jwale ka Elia. Kibe jwale ka Elia. Ka koloi e fofang. Mhla wangi susa la wangi beka la. Antlhatswa ka madi a hae. There are very few re's in these songs. It's a very individualistic religion. Very self-centered.
It gives birth to Bushiri.
Of course, it gives birth to people like Abu Bushiri.
So,
who, by the way, if that God was really true and a God, should be dead by now. For all the damage that he has caused. And then people will say, oh, don't even say that. Malawians will say, yo, we know him from witchcraft. Don't even say that out loud. Oh, no. Let me tell you how witchcraft works. I've never gone to anybody to require for umuti, for medicine, to do evil to someone else. Therefore, I have never given a passage for witchcraft. That's the danger. That's why I say to people, be careful who you consult. Go by opening passages into your life. Because I don't use witchcraft, I don't fear witchcraft. It doesn't work on me, truly. Because if it did, I would be dead by now. I know so many people have wished me dead. And I'm sure they've even tried to use witchcraft. Yeah. It doesn't work on me.
We are on the Outside podcast and our resources are very limited and we don't want to extend
yes.
and risk the unfortunate thing of cutting the podcast. So, if I'm an African and there's another African and we want to coexist, like break down structures. So I've always said, can religious people, specifically let me talk about, because in South Africa, most of them are Christians. Can Christians use their church? You spoke about an African who used Catholicism in their favor and not be used the other way around. Can these churches, these buildings, these gatherings they have on Sundays and other services, of course, that they have, can it be used to empower African people? Let me just give an example. If a church denomination has about 100 people, they donate money. Whether it's a month or every quarter, those 100 people, they build churches with the pastor. They build houses for any of them, so they do not enrich only the pastor. Is it even a sacrilege to suggest such a thing to Christians? Because I'm looking at, let's not dismantle the whole structure. Let's use the structure to help us as Africans. Is it even possible? And suggesting that, would it antagonize Christians?
Of course, it will antagonize Christians. Listen, I made the example of Queen Jingambande of Ndongo and Matamba. She went to Luanda, today Angola, and converted to Catholicism because that was the religion of the governor, and allowed herself to be baptized, and even took on the Christian name of the wife of the governor. Isn't it? You have to take their name if you convert. We said so. Ana de Sousa. She knew in her heart, though, that I'm only doing this to buy time so the Portuguese don't attack Ndongo. But when it did happen that they attacked Ndongo, she came out open, threw that away, embraced her spirituality, went back to consult spiritual mediums to rebuild Matamba. That's why we say Queen of Ndongo and Matamba, because they ramaged Ndongo, the Portuguese. She rebuilt Matamba from anew, not through Catholicism, but through African spirituality. The factors say, oh no, towards the end of her life she converted. You know what's said about our stories is we read them from a wide perspective. She converted because that's when colonialism was gaining traction. Angola was now being chiseled as a colony. And she wanted Matamba to continue. She wanted her sister to take over from her. So again, she converted to buy time. Did she die a Catholic? No, because if you look at her life, it will tell you there is no way she died as a Catholic. Because as she built Matamba, she always would go to the medium, which is how we ruled, by the way. It was the king, the queen, whoever was at the throne, and immediately after that, it was the spiritual medium who would then advise and say, ancestors are saying this. Throughout her life, she used the spiritual medium to make decisions. Can today's Christians do that? No, because they have totally converted. That's the thing. They are sold. They truly believe in heaven and hell, and they are so scared of going to hell. I mean, I've had people I was Christians with walk up to me and say, when we are burning in hell, you shall remember these days. And I'm just like, that's a threat. 1, 2, we are saying it like you are enjoying it, which is really the downside of religion. It makes you so pompous that you can just wish suffering on another person. They are so scared of heaven and hell that there is no way they are going to use religion for spiritual purposes, because they do everything that religion asks them to do. So, sadly, that's the downside. Because remember, religion demonizes who we are. It says whatever we do and believe in is demonic. It's only Catholics who don't. Maybe Catholics are the ones, and she had converted to Catholicism. Maybe Catholics are the ones who could easier, be influenced like that to do what Njingambande did, to say, use this thing for the liberation of our people. But in general, other Christians, no, they are sold line, hook, and sinker into this thing. That's why they even stand in the streets, Moss. And try and recruit you.
Please draw the distinction between spirituality and religion, and expand on the issues that you wanted to expand on, and make it not so complicated so people can understand that there is a distinction.
The big thing I want to say, because we are almost running out of time, in spirituality you consult, mostly we consulted at group level. We are living in a village called Amashe. Doesn't exist, I'm making it. And our cows are dying, and no matter what we do, it just continues. And then while we are looking at that, now we are seeing an outbreak of all our 10-year-olds having boils. We are going to consult the national media. First, the Queen Mother, because she keeps the national altar, must tell us what is going on, what are the ancestors saying. Then we'll consult the national media. Then she will call the other mediums and say, people, let's climb the mountain, let's find out communal things. We've reduced this to personal things. I want promotion, I'm going to consult. They will give me medicine and say, drink this, wash with this. I don't do those things. I fight with my ancestors at the altar. They will give me the answers. I don't believe a stranger will tell you things my ancestors haven't told me, unless they've been telling me but I haven't been listening. And mostly in those instances, you don't even consult, because you'll meet a stranger and they will say, this is what is happening with you. I had a white woman. I've never talked to her about my life at all. We work together in holding the National Development Bank, the BRICS Bank, accountable. She woke up 2 months ago and she said, this is the dream I had about you. I'm white. I don't even know if I should be doing this with you. We've never talked. This is not how we believe as a people, but this dream was so real, I feel I should tell you. It's about my mom. And I realized my mom has been trying to tell me something, I've not been listening. But that dream came to be an assurance. Did I have to consult somebody? No. A total stranger who's not even an African came to give me assurance. That's the fundamental difference. In spirituality, the answers will come from your people. At your home altar, this is where we fight it. Consultation will come really for things that are beyond you, and almost all the time that are communal. Second fundamental difference is that in spirituality, it's people who've lived this life, the living dead, so they know. Above them, they're both male and female. Above them are what we call deities. Unomkhubulwane for Zulu people is a deity of fertility, of virginity. That's why they have umhlanga during the first rains and the first planting, the first fruits. Because she is the goddess of fertility. You have Unkulunkulu, who is the god of thunder. Again, amongst the deities, both genders are there. The originators sexuality is never disclosed. Mangit umvelingang, you can't tell me he's a male. Because I say unomen and I say umeri because we don't have gender grammar. So the fact that I've said umvelingang does not make them male or female. We never drew them, we never saw them, they were never so much engaged in our lives. Undisclosed gender, that's spirituality. In Christianity, you know the gender. God is a man, Jesus is a man, the disciples were men, angels are men. Spirituality discredits, I'll come. Spirituality discredits and discourages gender discrimination. Religion encourages it. I've quoted the verse at the beginning of this podcast. Delilah, I don't know what you want me to say about Delilah.
Delilah, Mary Magdalene, and all the negative characters perceived as women.
But it's exactly what I'm saying. That's what religion does. Because religion says women are the weaker sex. The devil deceived the woman while the man was away in the Garden of Eden. So the woman can't look after a household. So the man is the head of the house. The woman is impressionable, easily deceived. She's the deceiver of men. Sin came to the world through a woman. Religion even reduces childbirth, such a blessing to have a child, to punishment. Therefore, you will labor to get your children. Hello, guys. Are you telling me there were no labor pains before 180? Christianity came along in 180, by the way. So are you telling me in BCE there were no labor pains? Do you understand that some of these things need you to think? But religion does not want you to think, and that's how it thrives. So religion is prescriptive. Spirituality is creative. That's why I say to people, why do you go consulting one person after the other? Fight it at your altar. This thing is creative. Answers will come. And then people say, oh, I was told that I can't, as I told you this, can't speak to ancestors at 3 in the afternoon. Why not? If they want to talk to you at 3 in the afternoon, they'll talk to you at 3 in the afternoon. Or I was told that you can't wear this on this hand. You can only wear this because the left hand is not a good hand. Who came and told us that? Religion is cast in stone. Spirituality is creative in application. That's why spirituality cannot go to war based on spirituality. We can fight about resources, the river from which all draw water, about what you did. It has never been about spirituality. The two are not the same. Spirituality has no dedicated day of the week which is more sacred than all the other days. Every day is a sacred day. Spirituality has no particular place. This ground is more holier than the other. It's called a church. No. That's why I pour libations anywhere. Even when I go to a club, before I take my whiskey shot, I pour on the ground. Because that ground, the fact that there's a club there does not mean there are no original owners of that piece of land pre-colonially. So it has its own ancestral belonging. We don't have a sacred space. We don't have holidays, as in HOLY, that have to do with a human being. All our days have to do with living. First fruits, first rain, last fruit, full moon. You know, it's nature. Spirituality is nature, and it is learning to cohabit with nature because you need nature. Nature does not need you. Nature can survive without humans. Spirituality is about human beings. That's why you have a name in all the religions of people you espouse to. It's the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It's the Prophet Muhammad, God bless his soul. It's Jesus Christ, you know. It is Peter the Apostle. No. Here, it's just who I came from. My dad, his granddad, their granddad. And then it's about all our clan. And it's about how we live through nature. That's spirituality.
No, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm closing with this one. And I promise to close with this one. I don't know if you had what is the future of our politics in South Africa? What is the future of us as Africans relating with each other based on this spirituality and religion? Should it be something that we ignore and move forward? Should it continue antagonizing us? Because there are lots of instances where people cannot get along because they are not of the same. And we've got other problems as Africans. I mean, tribal things, ethnic things, regionalism. We still have those things as Africans. Do we need organized religion to divide us further? I don't know. So now I'm done. I'm just going to let her close. If she feels something that she has not said in the podcast, I'll allow her to say it in closing. Doc, please close for us with anything you thought I didn't ask you.
I have two parting shots. We have normalized the abnormal. Why is it normal that there is not a single white patrol attendant through the whole of Africa, not just in South Africa? Why is it normal that there's no white person in refuse collection? Why is it that there's no white person who is a domestic worker or a garden boy? Why is it normal? We've normalized the abnormal. In the land of our ancestors, we are still slaves. Why is there no single white person who lives in a shack in Orange Farm, who gets on 3 taxis before they get to work? My second parting is, why haven't I met a Japanese who is in African spirituality, who is not a Buddhist or whatever religion, or a Chinese not in Taoism or Confucianism, but they are Christians? I can't go to Saudi Arabia today and I find a practicing Saudi Arabian Sangoma who is not a Muslim, and his name is actually Vusumuzi Mutwa, and he speaks Zulu and is a Zulu Sangoma. Why do we think these things are normal? I mean, where are we looking? Africans, just wake up, please, man, honestly. That's all it takes. Just wake up from your slumber and your stupor. That's all that it takes. Voga.
By the way, I'm tempted to put in this last one. I used to live in a place called Emelo in Mpumalanga.
I know it.
There was
the Litchfields are there.
Yes, there was a gynecologist who was from Nigeria. In and around that place, there was no other gynecologist. The closest one was a white lady in Wheatbank at the time. When I asked around, where does he get most of the clients, they said 100% of his clients are African. The next other gynecologists in Wheatbank, and people are the other races are consulting that lady in Wheatbank. So this is just to put testament to what she has said. Mashan Politically Incorrect, let me close it before we do any other thing. I hope the rituals have been done correctly for us to close. Thank you. Thank you.